Now Israel at times will lose sight of this universal mission. But from the beginning here in Genesis 12, and if you were to turn to Isaiah 42, 1 through 9, Israel is called to be a light to the nations. Israel is called to bring the nations back to God. Can I? Oh. Anybody having trouble reading something?
Yeah, what's that arrow said that
Canaan, C-A-N-A-A-N, Egypt, and the Philistines. I might just jot down 10:6 and following. Genesis 10:6 and following. It goes to the genealogies, and it shows Ham to be the father of Canaan, Egypt, and Philistines, and several other nations. What we know about the genealogy, Zach?
Remember Ham is like the first one because Shem is like the last one, and you might say he's going to be blessed through Shem. It says, may he dwell in the tents of Shem. So as long as he stays with Shem and is in you with Shem, he'll be fine. But he's not Shem's the oldest. And just a note on that. When you read through Genesis, you read through a series of firstborns who fail. Firstborns who fail. Or there's something irregular or off with the firstborn. The one exception is Shem. He's the only righteous firstborn son in all of Genesis. The only righteous firstborn son in all of Genesis. The firstborn will, for some reason or another, be passed over with every other patriarch. But Shem receives the blessing and is the only righteous firstborn son in all of Genesis. Another kind of side comment about the genealogies. They are not there, nor were they ever intended to be there for this reason. And the rabbis wouldn't have thought twice about this. They are not there for you to add up the numbers and see how old the earth is. Why do I say this? Because genealogies do this. They connect one descendant with another. When we get to Matthew 1 opens up with the genealogy. It's a very important genealogy. But they're inherently theological. Matthew will make my point. He will skip over kings in that genealogy to make his point. You know that he knows he's doing that. You know that he knows his audience is going to see it. But his audience will get the theological point. Likewise here, the genealogies are there to connect one descendant with another. The ancient rabbis do this very, very clearly, and they would never have simply added up the numbers and said, okay, the earth is 4,000 years old. Because they're not there for that reason. Genealogies quite happily skip generations to make the point. They're there to connect one descendant with another. So you can be referred to as the son of your great-great-great-great-grandfather. To connect you to that line. That's the point. It's not to add up how many people have been between here and there. It's to make the point as to which line you are connected to. So they quite willingly and knowingly, it'd be so blatantly obvious to them and their audience that they'll skip generations. Why? To make the theological point. Not to simply calculate the years that have gone by. To do that is simply to impose a grid or a rubric onto the text that the text itself does not have. Okay. Again, I think Matthew is an excellent case in point because he skips kings. Kings that are listed and you read about in the Old Testament. Clearly, his readers would have known that. And he wouldn't have thought twice about it because he says, well, that's not my point. Okay. Can I erase this? Okay. The reason I had you read the select chapters I did, 15, 17, and 22, is because these promises will be referenced and elevated in those subsequent chapters. So think of it this way. Elevated to covenant status. Think of it as through promises that are sort of solemnified or elevated to covenant status.
in Genesis 15, 17, and 22. Verse 18, 2, 6, and 16, and then 16 and 18. You'll have the word covenant mentioned explicitly in each of these passages. Here, you'll have a divine oath, where God will swear by himself that this will come to pass. Again, oath, swearing, and covenants are really two ways of saying the same thing in the Bible. So, covenant, and then divine oath. God says, I swear by myself. That's in verse 16. In 15, Abram, his name will be changed. We'll just make a comment. His name will be changed in Genesis 17. So Abram will become Abraham in Genesis 17. Abraham in Genesis 17. Now, a name change in the Bible is huge. This happens at select occasions when God is setting an individual apart. And usually the name will signify the mission. Usually the new name will signify the mission. The new name will signify the mission. The new name will signify the mission. Abram, you've probably heard of Abba. That's Aramaic, Abba. The root Ab, A-B, means father. This means exalted father. Abraham means father of a multitude. In other words, it's this. That's why he's got to be Abraham and not just Abram. Not just exalted father. Abram means exalted father. Abraham means father of a multitude. Because he's going to be the father not of just a nation, but this worldwide blessing. If we take a look at 15, Abram is still at a loss to how these promises will come to fruition because he has no heir. He has no son. So he says, let this Eleazar of Damascus, a servant in my house, let him be my heir. I have no son. God will come to him and say in verse 5, he brought him outside and said, look toward the heaven and number the stars if you are able to number them. And he said to him, so shall your descendants be. And he believed the Lord, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. That line right there, Genesis 15:6, will show up in both Galatians and Romans with Paul. He'll quote that line. And he believed the Lord, and he reckoned it to him as righteousness. Now, kind of a side point, but note verse 12. As the sun was going down, many have commented that, perhaps, at least it would seem so in the narrative, this is during the day.